What's good with the world, everyone? Sony's here, and today I'm gonna give you guys a tutorial on in-depth tutorial on Maximus. All right, the reason being is because I surfed high and low through the internet trying to find a tutorial on Maximus, seeing if other people had done justice to this plugin, and no one's done it justice. All right, so that's why I'm here for. All right. Maximus is unlike any other multi-band compressor, and this is a multi-band compressor, by the way, for those of you guys who are new. It's unlike any other multi-band compressor. Is different than, isotope ozone dynamics. It's different than waves. C4 is different than fat filter MB. Is different. So this will be a two-part tutorial. And first I will explain the functions right over here, in the low, mid, highs, and then on my second part I will explain all of these things right over here. So let's get started. Default, I got this track. Alright, so I did this track with a friend of mine. His name is LIB. I'll put the link in below, so you guys better check it out. Let's get started. First of all, we have the low, mids, and highs. This should be pretty self-explanatory. If you guys go to the bands, you guys could also see the low, mids, and highs right here. On the right, you have the low crossover to mid crossover point. And basically, a multi-band compressor, you have a crossover point, because a multi-band compressor, in a way, is it's like you have an EQ, right? And then on top of that, you have individual compressors. So basically, you have a crossover point for the EQ on top of the compressors. If you guys don't understand what that means, what I mean is this. So for example, let's say I have, so for this band right here, in between 100 and 500 and 600, whatever, I will put a compressor on, and same thing, and then from here and here I will put another compressor on. Basically, that's the way a multi-band compressor is made. Capiche? If you guys don't know, always feel free to ask. Alright, so we have the crossover points and the high, mid to high crossover points. Alright, we have the low cuts over here, which will cut the lows all the way up to 80 hertz. Yep. And generally up to 80 hertz is where the subs are, the subs. So that's why you have it up to there. Normally for live music, you probably will cut up to like 60 hertz or so, because that's where the kick drum comes in. For more EDM and electronic or bass driven music, you would have it, maybe cut at like 40 hertz. Okay, generally 40 hertz is a good rule of thumb. You have these slopes right here, which is how much I explained it in terms of EQ, right? So how much that slope is bent. So if you go over here, bam, bam, so it's how much the slope is. Obviously if it's like 24, it's like a more gentle slope versus a more steep slope. That's how it is. If you guys look in, let's say for example, this fat filter thing I have going on here. So if you guys go to slope, it's all right here. So 96 is the most steep, 24 versus 12, which is what we have. All right, so 12 is a much more gentle slope. All right, and then the next part, let's go into it right over here. You have the pre-gain and the post-gain, right? Pre-gain, as you guys can see, it changes in the band menu. Pre is the signal that's going in before, very self-explanatory. Post is the signal that's coming out. A lot of beginners, they change something, and they're like, why doesn't it get any louder, right? You gotta put up the post-gain. For it to go louder. Get what I'm saying? All right, and then here we have the threshold. Let me put it back at default again. All right, here we have the threshold, and this is basically Maximus's own version of an exciter. If you guys use the exciter from Ozone, you know, or tube saturator, whatever you want to call it, it's a saturator. You have modes A on the left, modes B on the right. You have a ceiling to account for how much you're going to affect, you know, the signal. Basically, exciters are a way to introduce excitement, saturation, because distortion can actually be pleasing in certain genres if you don't go over a certain limit, you know. And this goes into the whole philosophy of, you know, originally there are electric guitars, right? And you would overdrive them, you know, and in the beginning people thought that was nasty, but over time people thought it was pleasant, you know, and introduce rock and, you know, all these types of other music into the game, right? So that's basically, you know, you're adding a little bit of excitement. Normally if you put it on master, you're trying to add a little bit of excitement, especially to the mids and the high channels, of course. And here you have the attack, release, sustain, and release 2 knob. Attack, release, and sustain should be pretty self-explanatory. It's in pretty much every compressor that you meet. You have the curves, which is, I believe, the curve. So on the attack curve, if it's on 1, then it's instantaneous attack. It's like bam right there, you know. So you guys can see it's pretty instantaneous right there on the attack, versus if I put it at 8. See that the attack takes longer, so attack takes longer time for the actual curve to hit. And same with the release too, you know, like the longer the release is, the curves are longer here, you know, and then the longer the release time is, it's gonna take longer. And sustain is in between the attack and the release. And so, you know, attack, sustain, and then release. Attack, release, sustain. Anyways, I'm pretty sure here in the as far as I know, the sustain is between the attack and the release here. So yep. So it's between the attack and the release, how much is sustaining for, so you guys can see. Peak and RMS is basically a way for the whole program, the whole thing, you know, whole compressor to look at things. Peak analyzes the topmost parts, so the peak of the volumes, the top volumes, and then it compresses those, versus RMS, which is the average of sorts. So the volume makes an average between the loudest parts and the lowest parts, and then it, you know, it acts on the average, you know. RMS stands for root mean square. I don't exactly know what that means, but it's like a mathematical term. You use it a lot to make averages. All right. Release 2 works with release 1 and creating better release times. For that, always look at the help menu. It always helps. And then you got the LMH delay, LMH mix right here. Straight up, LMH mix is the parallel compression version of this. So, you know, if you have it 100% off, all right, LMH stands for low, mid, and high. If you have it 100% off, then you won't get any of the mixes that you do. The thing about this is that it doesn't affect the master channel. So, you know, whatever I do in the master channel, there's no difference to it. It only affects the low, mids, and high. So that'll be 100% mixed right now. Yeah, no difference, right? So you guys could always, you know, good rule of thumb, and set this at 50 for parallel compression. You know, if you guys don't know what that is, just Google it. Come on, I don't have time to explain it to you guys. You guys should be knowing that shit already. All right, LMH delay is low, mid, high delay, and this is basically a look ahead delay. Look ahead delay is basically, if you have an initial transient in this song, All right, so we got this initial transient, but if you guys actually look at it closely enough, there is not, let's do it again. All right, if you guys look closely enough, the attack actually didn't, didn't get exactly on the transient. You know what I'm saying? So the more look ahead delay you have, the the compressor itself here in this example is Maximus. It could analyze the waveform better and to get on exactly the transient. So all right, it got on better this time. Basically, the way it does this, and the reason it's called delay, is basically it introduces delay. The thing, right, the compressor or multiband compressor, it can't look ahead into the future. It's called look ahead delay. So what it does is basically you have the original, let's say the original is playing right here, all right, then it will be reading in advance. It will be reading in advance for a couple milliseconds, whatever you set it for. All right, so that when it actually comes in, it will be reading. It will know when to react and how to react to the transients. That's why it's called look ahead delay. It looks ahead. It's not a fucking like a prophet. Able to analyze what's gonna come before it looks ahead, and in that way it introduces delay in the system. That's why it's called look ahead delay. All right, low, mid, high delay, whatever it's called here. All right, and then you have these settings where you get on, compressor off, muted, off. Just mess around with it. Compressor off means it's bypassed. Muted means the signal is coming through. All right, the compressor off means it's bypassed. Muted means the signal is coming through still, but it's muted. Off means it's just off. Everything's off. Like everything is just bypassed. All right. So if you just want to look at the signal coming through, you could just put it on muted. If you want to have compressor off and bypass it, you can have it bypassed. Whatever you want. So this is for part 1. Wait out for part 2. Will probably be uploaded the next day, tomorrow. All right, which I will explain all the nitty gritty, all the presets, all of that stuff. All right, so peace out or loud.